Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan does like knowing animals. Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan does like knowing animals.
Hey you guys, welcome to Knowing Animals, the podcast where we talk to animal advocates and animal studies people about the work they do for animals. My name's Siobhan O'Sullivan and I do like knowing animals. Now this episode is brought to you by ASA. ASA is the Australasian Animal Studies Association. ASA is a fantastic organisation. It does tons and tons of work to help animals and animal studies, scholars and animal advocates with all kinds of things. Did you know that ASA has a conference coming up? The conference is going to be in New Zealand in the middle of the year. I'm going to be there and I'm going to be recording episodes of Knowing Animals, so I hope to see you there. ASA, the Australasian Animal Studies Association. Well, this episode of Knowing Animals is coming to you from a very, very fabulous place. I'm in Thailand at the wonderful Koh Samui Ozo Chuang Resort. I'm here for the Koh Samui International Podcasting Festival. Now, some people think that there's only one or perhaps 1.5 podcasts being recorded at this festival, but that's a lie. That's not true. I'm also recording episodes of Knowing Animals, and I'm really, really lucky to be joined today by Linda. Linda is one of the volunteers who works for the Samui Dog Rescue Centre. Linda was telling me before that she rarely does interviews, so we're really, really lucky to have her here. We're going to learn all about the work that is being done for street dogs in Samui, Thailand. So welcome to the podcast, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, so how did you get involved with Samui Dog Rescue?
I've been with Samui Dog Rescue now for almost 14 years. And what happened was I took in a stray dog and I had to go home suddenly to Britain. When I came back, my dog was missing. So I was searching for the dog and I found Dog Rescue. And I happened to go to Dog Rescue to ask if anyone had handed in my dog. And that's how I got involved with it. My dog, unfortunately, was killed on the road, and we found it. But I was so taken with these people and with the work that they did that it became my goal.
Oh, wonderful. Now, I've just got so many questions, and I want to kind of get these out in a kind of a structured order. So the first thing is I've only been here in Koh Samui like a little bit more than 24 hours. But my first observation is that there's not an abundance of street dogs. There's quite a small number of street dog and cat, perhaps compared to other parts of Southeast Asia. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
There are a lot of street dogs here. In the Chuang area, they keep it very controlled because they don't particularly like to have stray dogs around where there are many, many tourists. However, we've been on the go now dog rescue for 19 years, so all of the dogs are castrated. This is our main goal. All of the dogs are castrated or sterilized, and we try to keep the numbers controlled. But Koh Samui, throughout the whole of Thailand, Koh Samui have the most, the highest number of stray dogs.
Really?
Yes.
So you say that in Chuang, which is a part of Koh Samui that we're at the minute, doesn't have, they tightly control, you said. How do they control it? Are we talking about killing dogs or?
We had at one point, it's much better now. We had at one point a very sad situation where they would just poison dogs if they wanted them away from the beach. Now what's happened is the dogs have been so tightly controlled with sterilization and castration that the natural number of dogs has dropped in Chuang area. They still have a tendency that if there are stray dogs come into the area, they call us and ask us to basically take the dogs away. So we have many dogs at our shelter that have been picked up from hotels who basically have threatened to kill the dogs, or they have blackmailed us, really. They threaten to kill the dogs, or they tell us to take the dogs away. Our shelter is not meant for housing stray dogs. We're there to help stray dogs. But we have now over 400 dogs at our shelter. So it's becoming easier here in Chawang because there are less and less stray dogs, but stray dogs will always come into the areas. And what we try to do is educate them to understand that if they make us take dogs away, stray dogs will come and replace them. So we now have actually a very good thing which the owner of Dog Rescue set up, and it's a hotel thing where they have to sign to say that they're dog friendly and they will not harm the dogs. Most of the hotels, the big hotels in Chawang now have signed this. So we generally don't have the poisoning cases any longer here.
Well, that's a big relief. So what was it, 1080 they were throwing down, or what kind of poison?
Normally rat poison, which is a horrific type of poison to use. But as I say, it's tighter now, and thankfully it's been a while. It still happens on other parts of the island, but in the Chawang area, not so much. Tourists don't want to see dying dogs on the beach.
Right, interesting. So the tourist thing is kind of a double-edged sword, right? So the reason why the dogs have to go is because of tourists, but also tourists don't appreciate. The tourists want to imagine that the dogs have gone off to a happy home rather than are slowly dying on the beach, right?
Yeah, I mean, not every tourist is an animal lover, but the biggest number of tourists we have coming here happen to be animal lovers. So they're not the ones who are affected by the dogs. It's the hotels that are affected by the dogs. They don't like to see the dogs around.
Okay.
Most of the tourists actually love the dogs, and many tourists come back year after year to see their dogs because they befriend the dogs.
Yes.
So most of all the dogs on this beach have been here for years. People know them, and if they come back on holiday and the dog is not here, then the first people they contact is us to say, what has happened to my dog? They claim ownership of the dog.
Yeah.
So
the other thing I've noticed is that what dogs we have seen on the beach have looked lovely. You know, they look like they could perhaps have been from someone's lounge room, you know, straight out of someone's lounge room. Golden retrievers, other really nice dogs. So why do they look so nice? Is that about vaccination programs, or what's going on there?
yeah, I mean, we started the vaccine. Say the dog rescue now has been running for 19 years. And the main thing we do is vaccination, sterilization, and treating any sick dog. The dogs here, compared to 15 years ago, look tremendous. They look amazing, like pets. They're all vaccinated, they're all taken care of, and we have a 24-hour hotline number that if there is a dog who appears to be sick, then we have someone on call who will go and get this dog. So they never go unnoticed any longer. Yeah. So I think this is the main reason that they look so healthy, because they're now well taken care of. And the tourists feed them, of course.
Yeah. But of course, a lot of it comes down to you guys. Now, I want to get this in before we get to the end of the podcast, in case some people switch off before the very end. If people want to send a donation to support your good work, what do? They jump online, and what would they put into Google? Yeah,
if they put dog and cat rescue Samui, we'll come up automatically. Yeah. And I believe we have a PayPal system. We normally have an account holder in every country that take donations for us. Right. It's very easy. It's a very good website, and it's very clear how, if anyone wants to donate, they can go ahead and do this.
Because no doubt it's expensive. You need your vets, your surgery space, vet nurses, vaccinations, and of course also the shelter.
Yeah, it costs, I think, around 17,000 euro a month for us to run the entire organisation. We have one vet, we have a manager, and we have around 15 Thai staff. This works between Chawang, our head office, and our big shelter in Bantalingnam, which is on the south of the island. We have no funding from any government in Thailand, so everything is donation only. They work hard for donations from abroad, but the Thai staff, the vet, the manager, they all have to be paid for.
Of course, yeah. So a very small amount of Australian dollars will go very far, no doubt, to helping the animals of Koh Samui.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We get a lot of funding from Australia, actually.
Oh,
We get a lot of
wonderful.
visitors coming from Australia who are very keen to come and see our shelter and to work with the dogs also.
Yes. So another thing I've noticed is that my expectation is that when I see desexed and vaccinated dogs, that they'll have their ear nicked to show that they've been desexed, but you guys don't seem to do that. Am I right in thinking the dogs don't have the ear tags?
They don't have ear tags. What we do is we tattoo inside the ear. This was stopped around 10 years ago because they seen it as a form of mutilation.
Okay. Yeah, and it doesn't stop you doing your work. You can still identify who
Very
needs.
easily. The tattoo is in both ears, so it's easily identifiable.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is. They tried, I think, at one point with ear tags, and it just was for stray dogs. It's not a good solution because if they get into fights, which they always do, the first thing the other dog will go for is the ear tag.
Right.
And the cutting of the ear they don't do because they see it as a form of mutilation.
Right.
So the tattoo is the most humane and easiest solution for us.
Right. So you've got 400 dogs at your shelter. What's the aim? Is that to find 400 homes?
If we could find 400 homes, it would be wonderful. But unfortunately, once the dogs are at the shelter, their chances of being adopted are very, very slim.
Yeah, and you don't adopt overseas or in other parts of Thailand, the dogs stay on the island?
Oh yes, we do adopt. If anyone wants to take a dog overseas,
Yeah.
then they're welcome to take a dog
Okay.
overseas. Unfortunately, Australia, well,
Very
you can't
strict
even take a
laws.
biscuit into
Yeah.
Australia, so a dog is impossible.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's just
But
ask
what
Johnny
we have
Depp.
is we have for all our dogs, this is our main way of donation. All of our dogs who are registered at our shelter have a sponsorship. They're all available for a sponsorship. We only do one sponsorship, one dog. But this manages us to get an income in order to run it. But people pick dogs up on the beach. They have to come to us for the quarantine in order to take them abroad. And some people see dogs on our website and say, I want that dog abroad. So they go through the
Yeah.
process and then the dogs move abroad.
And then you're faced with the heartbreaking situation of more dogs in space. How do you cope with that one?
At the moment, we're full to capacity. We've just taken on another piece of land because we had a situation where there were a pack of stray dogs, around 50. But we fed them every day, and people kept dumping small puppies and things there. So the community around basically poisoned most of the dogs and then told us we had to get rid of the rest of them. So we took on some extra land and a house that we could take the puppies, but the ones who had been there for years, we refused to take. The situation is okay now, but this is how we end up with more and more dogs. And also the more people who throw puppies outside of our shelter, when they come in, if they survive because they're unvaccinated, and we're a stray dog shelter, so we have a lot of virus there, but if they do survive, they have no streetwise ability, so they have to stay with us. It's not possible for us to just put them back outside on the street. So this is how we accumulate more and more dogs. So to be honest with you, I can't answer the question because I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. We can't really afford to take on more land. At the moment we have already, our shelter is on 6 rai of land. It's not possible for us to really take more dogs, but we can't refuse if people tie them up outside our shelter.
Okay, Australian listeners and listeners around the world, you've heard the call. More income needed to obtain more land. So, Linda, can I now ask you about the cat situation? We've not really spoken about cats yet. My observation is that there again are less cats around than, say, somewhere like Bali. And also what I've seen so far is the cats are avoiding the mutilations which occur in Bali, the tails, that kind of thing. What's from your perspective, someone who really knows, what's going on with cats in Koh Samui?
The cat situation in Koh Samui actually is fairly simple. We try and get as many cats sterilized as possible. We have in between Chawang and our shelter around 100 to 125 cats that live with us. But the cat situation, they don't do mutilation. They don't seem to bother with cats. Cats are not really an issue compared to dogs, because cats just wander around and do their own thing, and they don't seem to have any fear of cats. So we, as I say, we sterilize as many as we can when we can catch them, but most of the cats are just stray cats and they just wander around. But for sure there's not as many cats on the island as there is dogs.
And why is that? Just the breeding cycle, or?
Well, I like to think that it's because we get there first and manage to get them sterilized. But also we have more and more Thai people who bring cats to us for sterilization. So the Thais seem to be more interested in the actual control of cats, because if they can't control them, then they're overrun with cats. So we actually have Thais who bring cats to us, where the dogs normally we have to go and get it ourselves. So I think this is probably one of the reasons. And the hotels don't seem to be so bothered with cats.
Yeah, right. So can I ask you a little bit about some other animals on the island? Do you have a view about the elephant sanctuaries and things like that? Are they doing a good job, or no, you've got a look of alarm on your face?
We actually only have one elephant sanctuary on the island. It's just recently opened. The end of last year, it just recently opened. I believe the owner is from the Chiang Mai area. They have many sanctuaries up there, but we only have the one. All of the other elephants you see on the island are used for the tourist tours and the riding and the dancing and all the other horrible things. So I can't really comment on elephant sanctuaries because we only have the one.
Right. But overall, would the message be for tourists to not engage with elephants?
Yes.
Okay, that's a simple yes.
Basically, what you're doing is, if you take a trip that involves an elephant ride or going to watch these elephants perform, they go through a horrendous process of teaching. Really a horrible process of teaching. So my view, and what I tell people who come to visit me, is do not go anywhere near a place that has elephant rides. There is a sanctuary if you wish to go and see them in their natural habitat. It's expensive, which has been a bit of a controversy in the island since it opened, but they have to pay for the elephants. And they have made a beautiful place, but at least they're free, and they're free of harm.
And other than that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people eating meat and a lot of seafood and animals outside, animals that are soon going to be someone's seafood meal outside restaurants. But other than that, I've not noticed a lot of animal kind of cruelty. There's no kind of primates tied up that I've noticed, or any larger animals. Am I naive of not being to the right places, or is that becoming a bit unfashionable?
It's not become unfashionable. It does still happen. They have, for instance, a tiger zoo here. They have a crocodile zoo. But they're not in Chawang. These are all on the tourist track. And also they have people who, especially in Chawang, go around in the evening with, for instance, monkeys, lizards, and ask people to take photographs with them.
Yes.
What we say is, do not encourage this. Do not have your photograph taken. These animals are treated with terrible cruelty. Avoid it at all costs. If people don't do it, they'll go out of business.
Yes.
But it does happen here.
Are tourists getting smarter?
I like to hope so.
Yeah.
I like to think that they are aware now of the level of cruelty that the animals have to go through for this training. Having their teeth ripped out, being beaten, especially the monkeys, being beaten terribly. I like to think that people are now more aware of this, and they avoid it for that reason.
Look, thank you so much. Now, Linda, I ask everyone who comes on the podcast to answer 5 quick questions. Are you ready for your 5 quick questions? I should say to listeners, Linda isn't a regular listener of the podcast, so she's doing very, very well without having a background in the podcast. So can you remember when you started to think that there was something not quite right about the way humans and animals interact, or the way humans treat animals, really?
Actually, the first time when I started traveling at a very early age. And the first time I went to India and Bali was when I realized that there was a huge divide. Something we're not used to in Europe. And there was a massive divide between animals and humans. And it took me a while before I could actually comprehend how people could treat animals with such cruelty. And then when I came to Thailand, which I'm here 16 years now, when I came here to live, it was shocking for me.
Has it improved?
Yes. I
Good.
hope it has. It has, for sure it has.
Oh, good.
And I like to think this is actually just down to education.
Yeah. Okay, so second question is, can you recall the first thing you did to try and improve things for animals?
Yes, I joined dog rescue as a volunteer.
Oh, bless. If you had to name one thing that animal people or animal advocates can do that will have a big impact, what would that be?
Don't ignore a dying or injured dog. Never step over a dog that you think is in pain. Especially here on Samui, there's a number you can call. Someone will treat that dog immediately. And it's a matter of life and death.
So if you had to name one animal advocate or animal rescue person who's had a big impact on you, who would it be?
That would have to be the owner of Dog Rescue, Brigitte Gom. She came up with this idea when she first moved to the island. She started it with nothing. Her husband and herself, they built the entire thing, and the level of health within animals here is incredible, since she is the leading force in dog and cat rescue on Samui.
And does she ever get burnt out or tired or?
I'm quite sure she works endlessly. Normally she works not so much hands-on with the animals. Myself and we have one, Jay, my colleague, she's another long-term volunteer. She does endless work on the computer for donations and getting the word out there and trying to make sure we keep going, basically.
Oh, good. So if you had the power to change one thing about the relationship between humans and animals, what would it be?
Improve your education. Would be the basic thing to say. Just make yourself aware of what's going on and improve your education, and especially the education in children. And this is what we're trying to do here. We also invite schools to come to our shelter to try and educate the children. If you're not educated, the children won't be educated, and it's a never-ending circle.
Wonderful. So people can find out more by jumping online and putting Dog and Cat Rescue Samui into Google. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And any other messages for the listeners?
Yes, please come to Samui and come to our shelter and see the work that we do firsthand, and go to the temples, because we work in the temples also, and there are many beautiful dogs and cats in the temples.
Wonderful. Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the listeners for joining us for Knowing Animals, the podcast where we talk to animal studies scholars and animal advocates about their work. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at knowing_animals or on Facebook at Knowing Animals. I'm Siobhan O'Sullivan, and I do like knowing animals.